Ever open up a file and just feel like you're drowning in data? You know you've got the numbers, but the story they're supposed to be telling is, well, it's completely lost. Well, today, we're going to turn that confusion into clarity. Let's dive in and really master your data in PSPP. So, you open your data file and bam, this is what you see. A super intimidating grid of numbers. It's a feeling we all know, right? Just looking at a spreadsheet and seeing this wall of digits just staring back at you. And it immediately makes you ask the big question. What in the world does any of this actually mean? How do we get from this jumble of raw data to some real, actual insights? That is exactly what we are going to figure out today. To find our way through this wall of data, we are going to need a map. And our tool for this is PSPP, which, you can think of it less like a scary program and more like a data labyrinth. It might look complex, but I promise, with the right tools, navigating it is going to become second nature. So, inside this labyrinth, you've got two essential navigation tools, the data view and the variable view. Honestly, learning to switch between these two is the very first step to teaming your data. Let's just stick with this map idea for a second. Think of the data view as the terrain itself, the raw, physical landscape of your numbers. The variable view, then, that's the map's legend. It's the thing that gives the terrain all its meaning. One tells you what you have, the other tells you what it is. So important. The variable view is basically the dictionary for your dataset. It defines every single column, telling you its name, what kind of data is in there, and this is the most important part, what those numbers actually represent. Understanding your data story literally starts right here. Okay, so if the variable view is our dictionary, how do we, read it? Well, we can crack the code by focusing on its three most important entries: names, labels, and values. These right here are our three keys to clarity. You've got the variable name. That's the short, no spaces nickname that PSPP uses. Then there's the variable label, which is the full, human-readable description. And finally, the value labels. Think of these as the secret decoder rings that translate all the numbers into actual words. And this is a brilliant example of why this matters so much. Let's take a variable named NAT drug. What do you think that means? Your first guess might be something about personal drug use, maybe addiction, right? Seems logical. But if you actually go and check the variable label, you'd find out it's asking about opinions on national spending for drug rehabilitation. See what a huge difference that is? If you just relied on the name alone, you could come to a completely wrong and, honestly, pretty serious wrong conclusion. So here's the bottom line. PSPP is a calculator. It just reads the raw numbers, the values. But we, as the researchers, we need the descriptive words, the value labels, to have any idea what those numbers actually mean when we get our results. All right, now for the main event. I'm going to show you how one single click, using one specific little feature, can completely change the story your data is telling. Seriously, this is where the magic happens. We're going to look at a really powerful example here. It's a variable from the General Social Survey called Evastray, and it asks a very personal question about infidelity. So when we look at the responses, we see yes, no, and a third category, never married. Now, just stop and think about that for a second. Logically, right? Someone who has never been married cannot possibly cheat on a spouse they don't have. So they really shouldn't be included in this calculation at all. But if we just run the analysis straight out of the box without thinking, this is what we get. It looks like only 43.2% of adults haven't cheated. And you look at that and think, that seems kind of low, doesn't it? And it's totally misleading because it's lumping all those never married people into the total. So, here's the big question. What happens when we go into the variable view and we tell PSPP, hey, that never married category, let's just treat that as a missing value and basically remove it from the math? And boom, the result changes dramatically. The percentage of people who say no skyrockets from 43.2% all the way up to 84.2%. Now, this is the more accurate figure because we are only looking at the people who have actually been married. So the takeaway is this: 84.2%. This single number just perfectly shows the power of defining your data correctly. One little click took us from a wildly inaccurate conclusion to the real story that was hiding in the numbers all along. That's a huge difference, right? It's pretty amazing. So now that you see just how critical this is, let's talk about how you actually do it in PSPP. There are two main paths you can take. You can use the simple point-and-click menus, or you can use the more powerful syntax code. Okay, the menu method is super straightforward. You go into the variable view, you just double-click the label or value labels box for the variable you're working on. Then you type in your description. For the values, you'll assign a text label to each number, one by one. And then you just click Apply. That's it. Doing that adds that crucial layer of clarity. Now, the second path is syntax, and this involves actually writing out direct commands for PSPP. It might look a little more technical, but its real power is in reproducibility. You can save your syntax file and rerun every single one of your steps perfectly every single time. And this is what it looks like. I know, it might look like code, but it's really just a logical command. You're just telling PSPP, hey, for the variable called age 3, make the number 1 mean 18 to 34, make number 2 mean 35 to 64, and so on. It just gives you this really precise control over your data management. So the next time you're faced with that big grid of numbers, don't just see data, see the potential. Remember the power of a simple label and the story-changing impact of defining one missing value. And ask yourself this: what stories are hiding in your data, just waiting for you to tell them correctly?